Despite its price tag, the Toyota Fortuner is one of the most successful SUVs India has ever seen. So much so that its numbers are quite the envy of its competitors. In no time, it became the symbol of affluence and power, even though it never really looked the part. But now, there is a new one that could change that. One glance and you know that it has lost some of the butch character of the previous design. This one looks leaner, sportier and more Land Cruiser with its walrus tooth-like extensions around the headlights. The latter themselves are responsible for imparting the sense of sleekness with their sharp, narrow and tapering design, which chucks the double barrel arrangement for a single projector with bi-beam LED headlamps. The massive bumpers and a large paraphernalia for the fog lamps is a very new-age Toyota thing, and the Fortuner borrows it too. The side profile leaves no stone unturned to give the Fortuner its distinction over the Innova Krista. More so because that MPV itself has made plenty of effort to look more SUV. The Fortuner gets its trademark floating roof effect with a wraparound windshield and the blackened out pillars. The kink in the glass house adds a bit of flair, while the large 18-inch wheels add muscle. A good mix of light and shadow surfaces prevents the side from looking drab too. The tailgate also echoes the theme of the front with its sleek taillights and the generous chrome treatment. While the exterior looks very new age, the cabin borrows a slightly old school design theme with a more conventional arrangement for the infotainment and the AC controls, unlike the more flowing and layered design of the Innova. It looks smart nonetheless, and the slim dashboard profile is a nod to an off-roading friendly design. The dashboard gets a nice leather treatment, and while the touch points feel very premium, some plastic bits feel relatively low rent. It has a similar switchgear, instrumentation, steering wheel and infotainment system as the Krista, but that is where the similarities end. The cabin width doesn't seem much wider than the Innova, and if my memory serves me right, the Endeavour offers a roomier cabin. But space certainly isn't a crunch in the Fortuner, unless you decide to shove two adults in the third row. So the second row seats come with a tumble mechanism, so getting in is relatively easy. However, once you pull up the seats, there is no lever to push them forward in any way, so you always have to use somebody else's help to get the seat forward. But even then, leg space, knee room, not very good, feels quite cramped in here. Headroom is not that great. The window is really small, so it's very easy to feel a little claustrophobic in here. All the three rows come with their own cup holders, 12-volt sockets, AC vents and overhead reading lamps too. But all 7 occupants share only one USB port. The second row gets its own center armrest with integrated cup holders. So that's the only advantage that this seat has over the Innova's second row. Now if you are necessarily looking at a 7-seater and the 7 seats are only going to be occupied once in a while, most of the times you're going to be chauffeured around in ones or twos, then I think the more supportive captain seats of the Innova make more sense. This car is ideally suited for those who want to make use of that seat and take controls in their own hands. And if you like driving, the Fortuner lures you with quite a bit of driving-oriented equipment. The option of a manual or an automatic gearbox, paddle shifters, a 4-wheel drive system with high and low range options, and more importantly, it also gets the lovely new 2.8-litre diesel engine. Yes, it's the same range-topping motor that you also get in the Innova. Now it's more powerful and torquier than the outgoing 3-litre model that powered the earlier Fortuner. And this particular motor, the 2.8, had impressed me in the Innova, and it continues to do so in the Fortuner as well. The engine comes with the option of a 6-speed automatic or a 6-speed manual and can be had with a 4x2 drivetrain as well. There's also a 4x2 petrol on offer. So the Fortuner also comes with a petrol option. It's the same naturally aspirated 2.7-litre unit that we recently tested with the Innova petrol. And the kind of characteristics it has is very similar to the Innova petrol as expected. And while that engine, while that laid-back nature, that sluggish nature works with an MPV, which is only supposed to take you from point A to point B, it doesn't really suit the sportier character that the Fortuner has to display. The diesel motor is what we would recommend, and being quite sprightly for an oiler, this motor is more in its zone in the Fortuner than in the Innova. It has got a strong mid-range pull between 2000 to 3000 revs, beyond which the power tapers off. it is best enjoyed with the manual transmission. But if this will be your daily driver, it is hard to question the convenience of the automatic option despite its relatively sluggish nature. The manual also gets an IMT mode, which will enable a rev match function for the gearbox to add a sportier edge to your drive. There are the eco and power modes too. The former aims to provide better fuel efficiency when driving in urban areas, while the latter is supposed to provide a complete torque blanket as and when you need it. The difference in performance doesn't seem significant though. More on that with a road test. The new Fortuner chucks the full-time 4-wheel drive system now and gets a new one that lets you choose between an economical 2-wheel drive for urban use or an electronically controlled 4-high or 4-low for off-road use. Given the time crunch, we couldn't find anything better than a small trail through a tea estate to test the Fortuner's off-road capabilities, but it certainly promises to be a capable operator. There's an improved rear differential lock but no LSD. Instead, it gets an active traction control system that mimics the effect with its ability to brake all wheels separately. The ladder frame chassis, the improved ground clearance and the reduced approach and departure angles certainly help in its off-road ambitions. It also has the option of electric assist for uphill and downhill climb, both off and on tarmac. But despite all these capabilities available out of the box, the Fortuner is still more road biased, the one that you will buy off the showroom. Aftermarket options will of course open up a range of possibilities if you are looking for hardcore off-roading, and the Fortuner will welcome it all. But the question is, would you take it through rough trails and dense forests now that it has all that upmarket bodywork? We believe most of us won't. On the road, the Fortuner feels stable at speed, but the ladder frame chassis makes for this jittery feeling when you're driving over undulated surfaces. It also fills the cabin with a more reverbing kind of a sound. The noise and vibration levels are quite low, but then you just can't escape the inherent nature of the ladder frame chassis. When tackling bends, there is a bit of understeer, no matter what mode you're driving in, 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. But tyre choices and their health, of course, will also make a lot of difference in deciding what the dynamics do for you, whether they reward you or they end up scaring you. There is the safety net of vehicle stability control and assisted anti-lock brakes to reduce chances of an accident. And should things go out of hand, it also gets up to 7 airbags and an impact-absorbing body structure to reduce the implications of the accident. Braking also sees a big improvement with the new Fortuner. Now, tyres again will play a very important role in that regard, but what is worth appreciating is the better control over body movement that the new Fortuner manages. It even has lesser nosedive as compared to the outgoing model. Fortuner's handling is surprisingly good for its ladder frame chassis. Despite the weight and the bulk, it doesn't feel top heavy, but don't expect the agility of a monocoque. The floaty feel of the previous Fortuner doesn't carry forward to the new one, but the ride quality remains equally supple. The steering, though heavy, is relatively lighter than the outgoing car, but lacks feedback. But overall, the package comes across stronger than ever. It is more evolutionary than revolutionary, and that said, it is now more sophisticated than brawny, and that could impress many, but disappoint a few. There's an old corporate saying, a Toyota outlives its owner. Now, I'm not sure if that is true in today's age of complex electronics, but what I'm certain of is that a Toyota, at least the one belonging to the IMV program, certainly outlives its own planned product life cycle. The Fortuner and the Innova from the previous generations are the prime examples. The new Fortuner, with everything that it has, is strongly poised for yet another long haul.